Jessica, the girl next door from Charlotte's #1 for Blazing Hip Hop and R&B, Power 98, No Limit Larry in the Morning Madhouse. Very, very honored to be here to take part in this conversation tonight. So thank you very much for the invitation. In addition to being on the radio, making sure that our youth have all the tools that they need to be successful in life is also a passion of mine. So I'm very excited to be able to take part in this conversation tonight and would like to thank each of you all for coming out tonight. Give yourselves a round of applause. Come back to those numbers in a second, but first, let's talk about equity. When we think about equity, the first thing that might come to mind is an overused yet underserved word, particularly absent in the Black community. Generally speaking, when we think about equity, we associate it with something financial, but it is equally associated with education. While many would argue that our country has made leaps and bounds towards creating an atmosphere of equality, there still lies an absence of equity. An example of this would be in 2013, the percentage of students in North Carolina that scored at or above reading grade level proficiency was 35%. In 1998, this number was 27%. A 15-year period that has only resulted in an increase of only 8%. Let me say that again. 15 years in an increase of only 8%. It's a fallacy to believe that you can take one student from South Carolina and a student from West Charlotte with completely opposite socioeconomic backgrounds, upbringings, and educational environments and believe that because you teach them the same things that they will learn the same way. But this is our current model of education. So take all that in, think about it, because we're going to be discussing that with our lovely and handsome panelists today. So on our panel today, we have Miss Ashley Williams. She is a graduate student of philosophy at UNCC and a community activist. We have Miss Carrie Cook, Vice President of Governmental Affairs at the Charlotte Chamber of Commerce and the founder of Empowerment. Did I say it right? Empowerment. Y'all see what she did there? All right. We have Major Bruce Bellamy with the CMPD, and he's in charge of community engagement. Travis Manigan, founder of Game Plan. Eric Turner, principal at Sedgefield Middle School. And Jeremiah Chapman, director of engagement with HBCU Pride Nation. Let's give our panelists a round of applause. So we're going to jump right into it. Here is our first question. According to the National Report Card, 40% of 4th grade students are at or above math grade level, and only 36% of 4th grade students are at or above reading grade level. In your opinion, how has our education system failed? And if it has failed, how can it be fixed?
All right. So yes, I definitely do think that we have failed, and that is because we are charging people like this brother to my left to do more with less, right? So you have, we can look at this in a number of ways. We can look at this from a local perspective, we can look at this from a state perspective, and we can look at this from a federal or national perspective, right? More so locally, of course, people will seek to blame someone like Ann Clark, who is the CMS superintendent, not realizing that North Carolina has cut education budgets by about $500 million in the past couple of years. So you're putting people in a position, you're putting not only superintendents, not only teachers, but also principals, of course, in a position where they are doing a lot more with less, because we are also seeing an influx of students in this particular area. If we think locally, we're seeing an influx of students, especially in North Carolina. I think it's been about 150,000 extra students now that we have over the past 5 years. So, with that being said, there's more crowded classrooms, which obviously, lead to less student to teacher interaction, which obviously equate in these dismal grades, these dismal scores that we see. And then also scoring has actually changed. The way that we evaluate students has actually changed as well. And we can actually thank our friends in the legislature up there in the General Assembly for that as well. So we have to look at the folks that are designing the policy for the students, you know, that are going to school every day, as well as the teachers that, you know, their pay has been cut significantly, you know. And some people that have started, say, 10 years ago teaching are actually making less money than they were, you know, less money now than they were when they started. So it's a huge elephant in the room, and we have to realize that you know, that there are a whole lot of systematic issues that we really have to approach and address before we can place the blame on teachers or principals or people on a much smaller level, I guess.
Don't place the blame on principals. So the question is, has it failed? And so when I looked at the question that was provided, and I looked at the numbers that were given, they gave the reading scores and math scores for fourth grade. A lot of people may not know that fourth grade is the first year of standardized testing. So K-3, there's no standardized testing. So fourth grade is that first year. That could be a traumatic experience, right? So to really get a clear understanding of the big picture, I wanted to see, well, what is eighth grade? What do the eighth grade test scores look like? And also, what is the graduation rate nationally? So looking at the same national report card for eighth grade math was 33%. And then for eighth grade reading is 34%. So from fourth grade to eighth grade, that number actually goes down in math. And then from fourth grade to eighth grade in reading, it goes down 2%. In 2012, Arnie Duncan, former Secretary of Education, he made an announcement that the national graduation rate was 80%. It was the highest that it had ever been, at 80%. Okay, so those are some of the numbers, and so is it working? Now, I would argue that it's working for the people that it was intended to work for.
I'm Carrie Cook, founder of Empower Her, a local nonprofit organization helping girls and women be stronger leaders in our community with mentoring, talent development, and advocacy. I heard about the Open Book Foundation and its focus on literacy, and I wanted to be involved because literacy empowers communities, and literacy is the key to educating folks to realize their full potential. So I'm happy to be here this evening to talk about literacy, to talk about educating students, and to talk about the things that we need to do to support urban education and to support the growth of urban environments as we look to make sure every student has a high quality education.
Eric Turner, I'm the principal at Sagefield Middle School at Charlotte Public Schools, and I decided to participate in this event today so that I can talk about the problems that we have in education and some possible solutions to improve education for all scholars.
Who is to say if this person is proficient and that person is proficient? I think sometimes we are holding ourselves up to standards where there's people in the ivory white tower that's telling us the way that we should think, or the way this is the level that you should be on by the fourth grade. Well, that's an individual. So I think sometimes you have to break yourself out of statistics because people can make statistics say anything.
Coming from a law enforcement background, a lot of times what we're seeing, and the school resource officers are up under myself and Captain Tori Tellis, but we see kids from your inner city schools or attending or dealing with a lot of the issues, life issues that the teachers at those schools have to deal with, that our officers have to deal with, that you may not see coming to fruition in your more well-established, or I guess from a socioeconomic standpoint, a more affluent neighborhood. So to say if the school system has failed, I can't take a hard line and say that yes, it's failed. I think that in some instances, when I say we as society, has failed because to the point it's made, when you're taking resources away from school, you got to make the hard decision of what you're going to fund. When you take resources from school, asking teachers to do more with less, at some point, there's going to come a breaking point.
Education is not one size fits all, and we have to educate students where they are, meet them where they are, understand their potential. Jeremiah's point about the budget is right on. Education in our education system reflects our priorities. It reflects our values. So if the education system has failed, we have failed, because we haven't made it our value and our priority to put the people in office who will fund education properly.
While
there might not be appropriate conditions to support the kind of education system that we want to see. We still need to be clear about who's making the decisions that lead the students into the school to prison pipeline. And Clark, at the end of the day, has had an opportunity to make it so that certain students are not expelled and so that they stay in their classrooms. So it's important that we press people like her. It's important that we press people who are administrators at schools to make sure that students are in their
My name is Jeremiah Chapman. I'm the Director of Engagement for HBCU Pride Nation. We are here today to discuss urban education because our country obviously has not valued urban education. Education period has been cut by 20% over the past 5 years here in the United States. In North Carolina, we've seen drastic cuts to education. We've seen actually a $500 million cut in recent years. So this is something that we can't stand for, something that people in the community are acting out against and speaking out against, and that's essentially why we are here today. So to discuss the structural issues surrounding those things, whether it be teachers' pay, whether it be the amount of money we spend on students per year, whether it be access to higher education. We want to discuss those things in a very holistic manner and understand what we can do moving forward to rectify such issues. So thank you so much. As I mentioned before, Director of HBCU.
I think that this next question, we're going to start off with you, Major Bellamy, for this one. The community policing model balances reactive responses to call for services with proactive problem solving centered around the cause of the crime and disorder. Community policing requires police and citizens to join together as partners in the course of both identifying and effectively addressing these issues. What areas of community engagement are CMPD currently involved in, and are they effective?
I would start out by answering the question, is it effective? But it is, because, and I'll tell you the program, but just flat answer, the things we're doing are being very effective. And some of the things that what we're doing, some of you may have heard one of the series that we've done prior to the Carrot trial that we had here in Charlotte, and continuing through that we've done was the Cops and Barbers program where we've done to go out to the community and kind of like a Know Your Rights forum to educate and teach. And we probably went into the predominantly African American communities and held these forums. And to know your rights, to know your rights, that if you are engaged with a police officer, what are your rights, what you can, what you can't do, things of that nature. And we've spun that off, and now we do a forum in the high schools. And I was talking with panels right here, I forgot his name, Travis. Yeah, we was talking about this, and what it's been very successful in that we go to these schools, and we've gone to West Charlotte, we've gone to West Meck, Mallet Creek, Philippa Berry, Harding University. We've gone along to a lot of the inner city schools, and we've met with the students. A lot of these students that schools have said are at risk, but what we find when we sit down and talk to these kids, that they have a lot that they're dealing with and a lot on their mind, but they are very informed and attuned, so they just need someone to sit down and talk to. And we sit down and we have these Know Your Rights forums, we give them information and talk about what are your rights and what we expect our officers to be doing when they engage in someone. And we tell them, and a lot of police
My name is Bruce Bellamy. I'm a major with the police department over the community engagement division, which encompasses the school resource officers, our juvenile diversion program, and of course our community engagement program. I got involved in this Mr. Webb reached out to the police department and wanted to know if CMD would be involved in this conversation here. And anytime we get opportunity to get in front of the community and to engage them in conversation about issues that are facing the community, we seize that opportunity because it's important to engage the community and to be involved. So we look forward to tonight and hearing discussion and comments from the panelists as well as taking questions from the audience.
It's on gentrification and the inequality in Charlotte. What impacts, if any, does the systematic approach of gentrification have on schools in our community?
I would say that
it really polarizes, or it really, I guess, further segregates our community further, right? So as we started to see gentrification closer to the uptown area, I know that there were, several, school closings.
I'm not against revitalization. I think revitalization is important. I think if we can make investments in our neighborhood, it's important. I think if we can buy those homes and move back into neighborhoods and raise the property values without having other folks have to come in and buy the homes, those things help. Bring in business, bring in private development in those neighborhoods, those things help. But we have to have more affordable and workforce housing in those neighborhoods. You have to have affordable and workforce housing so that people don't get displaced. And one of the things that our city, we're continuing to talk around it, but one of the things we really have to look in the eye is inclusionary zoning, and look at housing and whether or not inclusionary zoning is something we want to consider. Other cities are doing it. Charlotte has not yet taken that step, and there's a little carrot out there now. There's a little program, a bonus program, where if a developer chooses to include affordable and workforce housing units in their development, then they will receive certain tax benefits, etc. But nobody has taken them up on that offer.
My name's Ashley Williams. I'm an organizer for the Movement for Black Lives and a graduate student at UNC Charlotte in the Master's Program for Ethics and Applied Philosophy. And my research interests are race, gender, and sexuality. The way that I got involved in serving on this panel was because of what my most recent research interest is, and that is Black girls in schools. I'm really interested in the ways in which schools are becoming increasingly carceral and what we can do as a community to support more community schooling and policing.
Thank you. We're going to move on to our next question, which really tugged at me. I really like this question coming. I worked in the school system for about 11 years. So there's a perception that the teacher's job is to be the educator, disciplinarian, counselor, mama, daddy, sister, auntie, cousin, everything. There, yet community involvement seems to be a constant struggle amongst our urban schools. How can we fix this model?
I think that it's interesting that we're talking about fixing this model as if something is wrong with the idea that people can get whatever they need from where they go to school. So for centuries before the education system that we know today existed, the school was a site of all the things that you mentioned. And that is what it took to raise a community, to help youth develop. And so while I think that there is a lot of pressure being put on teachers to fulfill all of these roles, I think that they should be better supported by getting paid more or having more resources within the schools to help some of the issues that exist outside of the school in education that some of us have talked about. But I think that it's important that kids can get what they need when they go to school.
Amazing. I mean, if a student needs glasses, they can go to their communities and schools, their caseworker, and say, hey, I need glasses. I can't see. I really can't tell my parent because she can't afford it. I actually need some dental work. And they can go to their counselor and get some help. So I've seen.
Shout out to communities and schools, yay. All right, so we're gonna walk around, and if you have a question, my mic is going in and out, so we'll see, but I'm a public speaker, so I can work with that.
Here's one of the communities and schools shout out pass without giving a shout out to Citizen Schools, which is my organization, and we do bring the community into the schools and work with middle school students, so I'd love to talk to you more about that at the end of this program. My question though is for Mr. Turner. Eric, I know we talk a lot about those students. I was just like you. I didn't realize how I learned until graduate school. So it took a minute for me as well. Unfortunately, it didn't hold me back from succeeding in the career that I've chosen. However, I also know that the school system is throwing a lot at our teachers around differentiated learning, around blended learning. We got tablets, we got everything. We're throwing a lot at our teachers, and I just want to know your views on why that doesn't necessarily stick, or what can be done to help those teachers reach the students like you and I who have struggled in that area.
Vanessa, what's your name?
Vanessa Benton. We
Okay,
have a meeting tomorrow.
You're prepping, get ready.
And I used to work for citizen schools as well, and community schools a long time ago. So, two great organizations. Vanessa, I look at it like, if you can look at this, take this visual. Imagine drinking water from a water hydrant, full blast, right? And when we throw, every child has a Chromebook. We have all of this technology. We have all kind of learning platforms, web-based, but it's too much right now, too soon. So I have all kind of resources, and I say do it. And when I get a chance, I try to provide professional development and training, but it's not the right way to do it. And so we have the resources, which is a lot more than we can say than a lot of other school districts. So I'm not complaining about the resources that we have.
And the question I want to ask is, how do we promulgate and create systemic, radical, fundamental change in our public education system? And I'm going to say some things that, maybe might make people feel a little bit uncomfortable, but I have to speak truth to power.
Speak it.
Thank you. A Eurocentric educational system has not worked. And it's not going to work. So there's the Margaret Collins model in Chicago. Margaret Collins takes kids from backgrounds, very hard lives, and turns them into scholars. There's model after model after model that works, but my experience in Congress, I hate to say this, they were so busy raising money and partying and eating shrimp all the time, but they really didn't seem to care too much about the children. The good news is Mayor Jennifer Roberts, who I went to high school with and college with, she's now the mayor. She is going to start a very serious task force on education. I think it would be a great idea if HBCUs and people on this panel figure out a way to take your brilliant ideas to this task force that's in formation and demand, nicely, deep, radical, systemic, fundamental change so that all children, no matter what their background is, race, get an excellent education. Thank you.
I want to go back to a little bit of what Eric said, and given that illustration of ventilating a roof. If you want to know why Bill Gates was Bill Gates, it's because he was crazy about coding. I mean, he was crazy about coding because his parents introduced him to coding. I mean, they would actually they would kick him out of the laboratory, and then they'll break back in to code some more because they were absolutely fascinated that they could write code and make that computer.
My name is Travis Manigan. I'm the founder of Game Plan, and I'm involved with this panel today because I believe that education is the foundational issue of our generation. It is the great equalizer, but too many times education hasn't been prioritized in the right communities. So therefore, I'm a part of this panel to highlight some of the ways that we can bring those solutions to our community and not just focus on the issues. And that's why I'm here today.
Honestly, at the risk of hopefully it's not being too lofty what I propose, but I wonder, just in hearing the different things that everyone has had to say, are we kind of dealing with a chicken and egg situation with education reform? Do we believe that we can actually have reform without actually dismantling the systems that use education as a conduit to support
tonight, the Open Book Foundation. So we have the founder, Mr. Leon Webb.
I have the opportunity, the unique opportunity to be connected with all these individuals that are on the stage and intimately and really know a lot about them. So this question is kind of addressing everyone. 2015 was a particularly rough year, I feel like, on the minority population, not just Black, but Hispanic, immigrants, you name it. Everything from dealing with issues with the police to our education system to the communities that we have. We're being bought out of our communities. Our education system seems to be deteriorating. Police communication with the community seems to be at an all-time low. So my question for you all, and specifically for Eric, Travis, well, all of you, not anybody specific, is at what point as a community leader and as an advocate of community focus should my focus on educating our youth be to survive the situations that they're being educated on in school and that they're dealing with in the community? And can the educational goals that we have with our schools and the educational goals that I feel like we need to have as a community honestly be aligned?
Well, I definitely think that, you know, as we talked about the different programs that he mentioned earlier, that the police are implementing, I think we really need to marry those things. I think it's incredibly important that, you know, I'd like to see more like make it fun, you know, make it like a tour where, you know, where the police go into the communities, they go to the schools, and you got music playing, you got Jessica making things fun for the kids, and you know, maybe the policemen are there in street clothes, you know, where it's less, I guess, scary or less, I don't know what the word would be, but it's more inviting.
But for some reason, history is skewed. So personally, I teach my sons their history, and I do that on my own time. Why? Because I'm not going to allow my son to grow up with the images of him and people that look like him based on what's projected in media.
We're talking about education in the urban community, and this is the turnout, but the line is around the corner for Jace. I mean, I can't, we have to really, we're sharing the World Star video, we're sharing this, we're tagging people in that. Why aren't we sharing this? Why aren't we talking about this?
I'm really interested in abolishing the police, and until we get to the point where police are abolished, I'm interested in disarming them. And so we don't have to look to Mississippi to know that the police are not to be trusted, because as other panelists have mentioned, it's happened here in Charlotte where there are issues with officer-involved shootings. So I want to make it very clear that if the police want to have better relationships with people of color, then they should stop killing black people. Like, that's the first step. Trying to put police in schools in plain clothing or teach black men how to be complicit in what the police are telling them, that's an interesting way to do it, but how about we start holding police accountable by starting at a place of like, stop killing people of color?
I just want to close out by saying one of the key things that I took from tonight, and like I said, I have a very intimate relationship with everyone on this panel, and so I appreciate all of them being here and being willing to openly and honestly discuss, you know, issues that are surrounding our education system and our community. As you can tell, I wanted to get to